Welcome back to How It Works. I'm Ken Baker from Green Pro Solutions. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the manifold. The manifold is one of many systems in this particular vehicle. What we're going to be talking about is how it works and give you a few troubleshooting techniques for when you're in the field. The manifold consists of a high pressure, return, and suction. Each of these components work together as one. For instance, anytime you're in a tank, extracting from any tank for your pump, you want to make sure you have a suction open. In this case, we're going to do the 300-gallon tank, and you want to make sure there is a return, which in this case it's a 300-gallon. So when the pump is operating, it is sucking from the 300-gallon tank, and it's returning it to the 300-gallon tank. In order for the pump to be proficient and not to create any damage, you always have to have a place for the fluid to go. So in this case, you're just taking it from the 300, returning it to 300. If you want to send it from the 300, in this case it's a nursing tank, you can send it to the 80-gallon tank. All you have to do is open the 80 first, then shut the 56, and now you're pulling from the 300 to the 80. And this can go on to the other different types of tanks. Now, at all times, again, you have to have a suction open. So I'm going to put it back to the 300, shut the 300, close the 80. Now, say if I'm, as the motor is running, so if you want to be able to now suck from the 56 to the 300, you can by simply opening the 56 and closing the 300. Now you want to do it as quick as possible so you don't mix and contaminate as little as possible. So again, you can go from suction to return in any combination of each other, depending on if you want to mix product in your 56-gallon and you want to put it in your 80, you would suck it from your 56 and you place it into your 80. Or if you want to use product nursing tank from your 300, you can empty water into the 56, you can empty into the 80, or the left 56. So there's a lot of combinations of things that you can do with that. Another part of this system has a regulator. This regulator is what it does, it controls the pressure going out of your gun. So when you have your motor running, and you have the system that you wanted to pump from, you use a regulator, you engage the regulator, and you turn the handle, and this needle will go from 0 up to 700 psi with this particular unit. You just turn this gauge, and you can go up from 0 to all the way to 700, or you can back off at any point in time, depending on the type of gun that you have, how much volume you want to provide, and the height. At all times when you're done spraying, you want to disengage your regulator. It puts unnecessary stress upon your pump and your motor. They have also different safety features. There's a black pop-off valve here, and then there's a relief valve here. The pop-off valve will prevent you, this is regulated for 700 psi, so if you pump this over 700 psi here, this will pop. And then to engage that, you disengage the regulator, the pop-off valve will re-engage, and then you can re-engage your high pressure. The relief valve is also similar to that. It's a temporary safety feature to where if you do forget to open one of these valves, this will bypass into your suction temporarily. There is no full safe technique to use if you do not open a return when you start your pump. And if you forget to open up a return, there's a high probability of damaging your pump. Or this bypass hose would relieve. Another feature of this manifold system are these tubes here, which come down on this particular model. They're down here. On some of them, they're going to be over here to the left. What these are used for two main purposes. One is for weatherization. You hook your compressor up to this, open this, and then you blow all of the water from the hoses back into the individual tanks and then eventually drain out. The other is when you're running your system for the first time in the spring, or that you drain your tanks out completely, you're going to get air in the system. So as you're running your system, they have a term called cavitation. And this cavitation can vibrate, the hoses shake around. And what you can do here is, as the motor's running, you open these a little bit, and it will let air, and it will spit and spurt for a little bit. And you go through the high pressure, the suction, and the return, and eventually you'll let the air out, and the engine starts calming down. So as part of the troubleshooting of this manifold system is the cavitation, like I just mentioned. You're going to have some of that. You're not going to know why when the hoses start to vibrate and the regulator needle starts to bounce around up and down. It's typically because you're running very, very low on product, and it's creating like a vortex tornado inside the water if you have only a little product, and it's sucking air from the top, even though you may have a little bit in your tank. So you want to make sure you turn your pressure down, and your vortex will stop, and then you'll be able to suck product. The other reason is that some of these clamps, they have to be tweaked every so often, 2-3 times a year, because they will vibrate and become loose, and even though they're not dripping water or dripping any product, they will suck air, and that's going to cause cavitation and vibration. So I would always suggest fixing these, adjusting them, tweaking them throughout the season. Another factor or service point on these are your fork fittings. If you want to drain your system, you want to change out hoses, you basically just pull these forks out like this, pull your components apart, drain your system, or flush it, or change hoses. Gives you that option. One of the other features to this for suction, and we'll touch base in another module on this or another episode, is your filter system, which is all part of why you're cavitating here. And we'll talk about that in another feature, but there are things on this filter system that's part of the suction of the manifold, which can contribute to that cavitation that we're talking about. So overall, this system is one of many systems that work together in corporations with the engine, the pump, the tanks, the fill system. This is what we call the heart of the system. Thank you for joining us in this episode of How It Works.